Hey guys, it's Saturday, and that means it's time for me to examine an episode of an animated superhero TV series. And today, I will be looking at an episode of Season 2 of the Legion of Superheroes cartoon, titled In Your Dreams. For those of you who have not seen the episode, or you have, but it's been a while, I'll be telling you what happened in the episode before I tell you how I felt about it. The episode begins with a huge action sequence that ends with the Legion being blown up in defeat. We then see that this actually is a video recording and that it did not happen at all. It was recorded from the dreams of Dream Girl, who we have not seen in this series as of this point. Her dreams are prophetic, and because she dreamed the Legion's defeat, the Legion is able to prevent their messy deaths and stop the evil bad guys from stealing some made-up dangerous element. We then get tension in the Legion from Lightning Lad and Dream Girl because Dream Girl used to con people with her powers, even though she tells Lightning Lad that she never conned anyone in her life. Yet when she says that she used to tell people what they wanted to hear, yeah, that's kinda conning people, Dream Girl, that's exactly what you were doing. Then the bad guys are able to tap into the Legion's recording machine and give a false dream for them to try and prevent while they capture Dream Girl. Then they use Dream Girl to see how they can defeat the Legion, but Brainiac 5 outsmarts them, and then they defeat the bad guys. The end. I haven't had much occasion to say this in my reviews of this series because the series hasn't gone to this place until this episode, but I don't really like Dream Girl. It's not so much her personality. I mean, yeah, in the comics in the early 1980s by Paul Levitz, she was an unbearably awful human being who I could not stand, but I liked her personality just fine in the 3-boot era of the early 2000s. So it's not really her as a person, but her powers that frustrate me. It's a lot like the Legion having a time machine when it's convenient for them, but seemingly ignoring it when it would be even more convenient for them. Think of all the problems that could have been solved in this series if these guys had just gone to Dream Girl at breakfast and said, "Hey, do any of us die a horribly tragic death today? Or do our arms get blown off? Or eat an eyeball that turns us crazy? Or lose 1/3 of our essence in the future? We're just throwing things out here, though. We don't know any of this is going to happen to us, but that's why we came to you." Logically, these guys should be using Dream Girl in every mission, and if they don't, then they are idiots for not using their most valuable resource in fighting evil and not dying or getting seriously injured. And if they have been using her this entire time, then that makes Dream Girl the most useless Legionnaire on this entire team. She can clearly predict dangerous situations sometimes, but where has she been in every episode of this series before now? Okay, so maybe she wasn't a member of the team in Season 1. One of the others mentions that she used to run her own operation telling people the future, and then they decided to give her a chance to join them. But when? I know this series mostly consists of standalone episodes that don't really have an impact on each other. For example, Triplicate Girl can lose 1/3 of herself and act like she's bothered by this, but then we never see or hear from her again in the rest of the series, and she's never sad or mad or anything else about this event happening to her. This series addresses things that happened in the past episodes when it wants to, but for the most part, you could watch episodes 3 through 9 in any order and it wouldn't really impact the story of the entire season. But suddenly saying, oh, at some vague point in the past, this girl with a very important power joined the team, but not telling us when, again, it either makes the Legion look like fools, or it makes Dream Girl into someone with a very unreliable power, and thus it makes the Legion look like fools for taking her in the first place. And yeah, I have just as much problems with her in the comics, but since she isn't even in many of the Legion stories that I've read, I don't have to deal with this malarkey. And I didn't have to deal with this malarkey in the cartoon, until now. But let's try to ignore just how dumb it is that people like Dream Girl can exist in this series, and yet the Legion can still be taken by surprise by the bad guys and stuff. Let's ignore that for a minute and just look at the rest of the episode. Well, once again we have another episode where the Legion is just having a casual day of crime fighting and easily defeating Z-list villains. Is it just me, or does this season really suck? Oh, it's not just me. I know I said this before, but this season would have been about 1,000,000 times better if it did not have a long season-long arc that it was trying to do. This whole Imperiex thing was maybe one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen in any cartoon ever. If you will recall, Season 1 of this series, for me, was mostly a mixed bag. I liked some episodes and others I did not really care for, but every episode lived and died on its own merits and sins. I wasn't told at the beginning of the series to expect something that was never going to happen. Now flash forward to the beginning of Season 2. We are told that Imperiex is deadly and dangerous, and that if he comes back to the 31st century, he will screw up the timeline and things will be bad, like Days of Future Past Terminator bad. And he does come back in the 2-part season premiere, and guess what he does? A whole lot of nothing! He's been in maybe 3 episodes out of this entire season, and so far, he's been about as dangerous as Jar Jar Binks. In fact, he even is played as a dumb bad guy on par with Horatio J. Hoodoo, because nothing is more comedically appropriate than a homicidal despot from the future, right? And you know what makes this whole debacle so mind-boggling? It could have very easily been fixed. The beginning of Season 2 should not have emphasized how much trouble the Legion would be in if this guy came back to their time period. This season should have begun with Imperiex arriving in the present, and then Superman X following him, and then he tells them that he's bad news, but we don't have it told to us in absolutes that if he is in the past, then everything will be destroyed. But the series set up a premise for this season that it had no intention of following through. Over half of this season has been standalone episodes that have had nothing to do with Imperiex. If these are the kinds of stories that they wanted to tell, then maybe they should have just done what Season 1 did and have a season that doesn't really have a big bad or an overarching threat. Just a bunch of standalone episodes, and you're not telling the audience that there is an arc when there really isn't one at all. And I bet some of you are getting tired of hearing me complain about this. Well, I'm getting tired of it being a problem in this show. In fact, I'm sick and tired of this show, period. When I was watching Season 1, even in the episodes I didn't really dig as much, I was confused why this series didn't last longer than it did. This season has removed all confusion. I can easily see why anyone would cancel this hot pile of garbage. And you know what's disappointing? This episode wasn't terrible. It has a nice little arc where Lightning Lad learns to trust Dream Girl. It's a good little character moment, but it's like eating a spoonful of nails and realizing that there is a piece of candy beneath the nails. Who cares if the candy is good? I've had to endure a mouthful of nails that are hurting my mouth. And that metaphor isn't even working just right, because this episode only clocked in at okay. It still has the problems of putting a precog in this series and not utilizing that piece of this world building properly. You know what's really sad for me? This show is starting to make me miss Young Justice, and I hated that show. Guys, I cannot wait for this show to be over and for me to stop reviewing it and review something else every other week. So with that somewhat somber note, I will remind you guys that if you like hearing me talk about animated superhero shows, I do it every Saturday, alternating between Batman the Animated Series and soon some other kind of series, as 2 weeks from today, I will be talking about both parts of the series finale for Legion of Superheroes. I've got a few ideas about what I will be doing next, so if you've only checked into my channel to see and hear my thoughts on this show, stick around because maybe you'll like what else I have to say. And on that note, do come to this channel throughout the week, as I've got videos frequently that come out other than my discussions of animated superhero shows. So with that being said, I'll see you guys later. Have a great day.